Hey, it's your boy. So, I am in George's studio, but George is not here. Main reason I'm over here is to shoot a video on MIDI versus audio. George is a lot more knowledgeable about like acoustic theory, auditory phenomenon. That's his shtick. So I wanted to get his insight and opinion on it because this is exactly the kind of thing that I would just totally botch. And not because I don't know what I'm talking about, but because my words don't work really well when I'm trying to be really specific. I normally have to type something out, whereas George, he's a bit more eloquent with really academic types of things. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know it as well as I know composition. I can't just, off the cuff talk about it. Hopefully when he gets home, he'll be up to talking about Ableton and that sort of thing. But in the meantime, look at all these knobs. I'm here alone. Ooh, all these knobs. Yay. Look at all these sliders. Ooh, yes. Hey, I recognize this guy. It's Gear Heaven. He's got the best sense, man. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's 7-string guitar. It's got a low B. Haha. My phone just won't leave me alone today. It's George. Hello? I definitely am not playing all your guitars. That was George telling me to not play his guitars, which I definitely wasn't doing.
Do you like potatoes? Because we've got potatoes.
We've got them. $5 a pound.
Do you want them?
Come get
them.
Yeah. Well, the whole reason we did this video was because I had a couple of people ask me in the comments section why I flatten things, why flattening or resampling or printing things down to audio is such a prevalent part of my workflow. And I wanted to create a video that shows you why. And with me here, I've already introduced him on the video, but this is George Sedaris, if you don't know who he is. Check out the link in the description down below. So, what we've done here is a couple of tests, a couple of experiments inside of Ableton to demonstrate the effects of flattening, the effects of printing to audio, from a VST, right? From an internal synthesizer, just, getting things down to audio. And there's a number of reasons you might want to do this. The primary reason that people flatten things, I think, is probably to save CPU clock cycles, right? When you flatten something, let's say you have a really intense patch in Serum or something that causes a lot of lag or delay or buffer underruns and stuff like that, popping and crackling inside of the audio signal. What you can do by flattening it is reduce the amount of clock cycles necessary to process that particular sound. The criticism I used to get about flattening was that it's a very destructive process. And now that I have a nicer computer, I don't have to destroy my audio so much. When I flatten it, I can have duplicates of channels and just deactivate some of them. But the reason I used to flatten so much is because I used to produce on a Mac Mini with a really shitty processor. You want to drive? You want me to drive?
Up to you, man.
You drive.
Okay. Serum by X for Records.
I was waiting for you to make the what we've got here is Serum playing just a saw wave. We've done some things to the amplifier envelope.
We turned the attack and the release all the way down just so it would be a pure wave, so it's instantly on and instantly off. There's no, we can see where the cycles end based off of the MIDI notes very easily, so we can compare them. But another thing is turning random all the way down so that there's no potential phasing between iterations of MIDI notes, which means each time a MIDI note plays, Gardner's fallen asleep, it's exactly the same. It's going to start exactly in the same phase spot.
And what we've noticed is whether we are freezing them directly and dragging them into a new audio channel, whether we are just hitting resample and recording from an audio channel, routing Serum to a different channel, or whether we're resampling from a frozen channel, all the waveforms, if we zoom in here, look, for the most part, identical. And we did notice, and this is kind of funny, I don't know if it's an anomaly with this machine, or what, but there's a very, very slight delay, like milliseconds, on the resampling Frozen track. So when we resampled a Frozen track, like just a little teeny bit, like
not even a millisecond.
Yeah, but resampling and freezing, like the actually recording a sound or freezing a track and then dragging it, or freezing and flattening, identical, totally identical. So that's pretty cool. That caused me to think, ah, crap. Well, the reason I'm doing this video is to prove that audio sounds better than MIDI. Yet here, no discernible difference, no perceivable difference, and you know, no like numerical difference. So I'm sitting here thinking, all right, well, I've already proven myself wrong. Then the question became, well, how are you processing it before you flatten it? So what I did was, I'm gonna drive for a second here. I'm just gonna solo one. Okay, like this. Yeah. So what I've made is a sub, and it sounds like this. Let's listen to it again without the metronome on. What I've done, other than messing with the amplitude envelope, did I say it right that time?
Yes.
Yeah. What I did is just, you know, I made it more of a pluck, and I added Saturn. And for those of you who are familiar with my reviews, you've seen me, or my how to makes, you've seen me use Saturn a bunch. It's basically just distortion. And I don't want to change this, so I'm not going to adjust anything. But this functions like a multiband saturator. And actually, I'm going to let you talk about what this does to the actual sound. I just know that I like the way it sounds. No, seriously. And this is why I have George. See, he knows why it sounds the way it does. I just know I like the way it sounds. Huge disclaimer here. I'm basing all of this off of my intuition. Go ahead.
I mean, saturation basically creates artificial harmonics based off of the input signal. So it's creating, I mean, that's why it sounds warmer or brighter or, you know, whatever, because it's adding artificial harmonics to the sound based off of the input signal. So it's a feedback loop, effectively.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but what's happening here is, in essence, you can use different settings of that feedback loop for each band you create. But the big thing here is that what you're doing is it looks like you boosted. So you boosted the first band, which is, okay. So the crossover frequency is at 135.48 hertz. And then the next range is 135 to 350. So that low mid range that you're really starting to get some, a little bit of the characteristic tone is actually being ducked 4 decibels. Yeah. So in essence, you're using this kind of like a multiband compressor.
Okay.
Because you're kind of changing the balance of the frequency bands here.
All right. And again, I'm not doing this because I know better. I'm doing this because I like it. I just want to make it clear that like people are like, "Oh, you're so smart." It's like, no, I've just spent a lot of time dicking around with knobs, and I like the way this sounds. Let's close this. So that's all I've done to this real basic serum patch, is add Saturn to it, and if I play this versus the flattened signal, you're gonna hear a difference. So listen to it again. This is Serum, the VST. Now let's listen to the audio. You're especially going to notice the difference when it actually modulates in pitch. So there's an important thing I did that makes this a little bit different. So I'm actually going to walk through the process right now. So let me go ahead and freeze the track. And I'm going to grab this audio and I'll show you something. I didn't know you could do that before today. That's pretty rad. So what this does, and you also notice the difference between how it used to look and how it looks now. And the reason that looks different is because I chopped it. So oops. All right, here we go. I did this. Right, so now they're all actually the same note. Let's listen to it again. next thing I did was modulate this using the transpose function. I do them all together. It's down to 4. And this one is up to. Why do the notes that are a little bit lower as compared to the MIDI we heard earlier sound a bit punchy? Punchier.
Okay, because of that multi-band saturate.
Mm-hmm.
When you're passing different notes as MIDI, the synthesizer is what's deciding where the harmonics are, where the different frequencies are going to be prior to Saturn.
Right.
But when you pass that first note, you're taking that first note, I mean, you could have chosen any of those other notes too. So if you said, okay, well, actually the lower note sounds better, the higher note sounds better, you could have taken that and just transposed it otherwise.
Right.
But the main difference here is because you are processing in a fixed way and then taking something that now has a more colorful spectrum.
Right.
And transposing that whole spectrum. So when you're transposing it, unless you're using Ableton's Complex or Complex Pro algorithms.
Right.
Now, I would probably say Complex Pro is going to be the one that does this. Complex is actually trying to preserve the sound as is. Complex Pro, on the other hand, you can change the formants, so you could actually take it back to what it sounded like prior to turning it into
And
audio.
I typically use Complex.
Yeah, but Complex Pro is going to be the one that actually will pay attention to those higher frequencies and say, okay, well, actually, we want these to stay or move.
And for those of you who don't know what we're talking about the warp modes, and I'll zoom in on the screen so you can see what I'm talking about. There's this little box. If you've never dicked with this, you need to. It's like a great way to spend an afternoon and mess around. Right. So we're looping it. Super annoying. Sorry.
Not very sorry.
Negative 31.5 is what Serum is outputting in terms of volume for this note. This is one of the ones we've transposed.
110 hertz. Negative 27.
Yeah. So a whole 4 decibels of difference just by using this trick. And I think the conclusion we were able to draw from all this is that whether or not your flattened audio sounds louder depends on how you treat the flattened audio before you flatten it and after you flatten it.
And what note you choose from the flattening. So for instance, like in this case, it's the reason there's a difference in Gardner's from his original is because he chose to take only the first note in that sequence.
And normally I take the one that's the most prevalent. So if I have a line, I take the note that has the most of that note.
So in his case, you could pick the one you like the most.
Right.
Like this one's got the most color, this one's the most interesting, and use that one as your main element.
I just do it by the numbers, but yeah.
That works too.
I just do it by which note is played the most. Like, favorite, and subscribe. Okay, bye.